In today's video, I'm going to show you how to set up Github OAuth. So essentially, OAuth, verifying someone using a sign-in with GitHub and verifying and accessing their GitHub data using Node.js mostly. There will be a little bit of React, but that's just because I'm using a MERN boilerplate as my starting point. So the whole point isn't to focus on the React aspect, but there will be a little bit. It'll be mostly Node, and I'll show you how to do that. So if you look at my screen, I have 4 links open currently. First one is creating an Oauth app. Second one is authorizing options for Oauth apps. Next one's scopes, and the last one is speeds. And so each one this is the general steps on how to create. This is right on the GitHub page, but this is how to register a new Oauth app. And so I'll show you how to do that. This page is showing you the kind of the web application flow. So first step is to redirect them to the GitHub page with a specific parameter which indicates which application they're trying to authenticate with. And then essentially what they're going to do is they're going to redirect you back to your site. In there you'll gain access to their API if it's a successful authentication. And then essentially with that, then you'll start being able to make calls using depending on the scope, and that's where this comes in. This is the scope, so there's a whole bunch of scopes, permissions that you can get here. I might probably go with the very bare minimum in this video, but just evaluate which scope you potentially need. What are you trying to do? I absolutely recommend not reaching too far. At the same time, you have to realize a lot of people don't pay attention when they're registering. On the other hand, some people pay attention, and they might get spooked if you're asking for all permissions on everything. Like, that's a lot. And the last link here, all of them down below, this is the REST API. So if we make a GET request to this URL, we'll get essentially what will be returned is the feed that you'd see on your GitHub page. And so that's what we'll do at the end, just to verify that our whole setup has successfully worked. And so let's start on the first link here, creating an Oauth app with GitHub. So what you'll do is go to GitHub / that's not me, this one's me. Go to GitHub, top right corner, under settings, scroll down. Okay, sorry, it's where my email is public there. Scroll down to developer settings, and then you can create a new Oauth app. I'm just going to call mine demo. Homepage will be actually localhost, and then you're going to put your port in. That's optional, and then the callback is GitHub actually talks about this a little bit here. So we've successfully completed this entire page. I'm going to close it. If you scroll down here, scroll down. Nope, it's not on this page. It's on. I might have closed it, but essentially GitHub goes through and explains what a good callback URL is and what is not a good callback URL. So for example, just making it localhost 9000 is not a good callback URL. It should be something relatively unique and descriptive of what's going on. And so we're going to make ours user, and we're just going to say sign in / callback. Okay, and so with that, we're going to register our application. I'm going to delete this application before. I'm going to delete this application so I can keep these client ID and secret completely public. Now that the application's all set up, the next portion is going to involve the actual MERN. So go to GitHub / Keith Weaver. If you like what I'm doing, follow me on GitHub. Often I post on GitHub. Go to MERN boilerplate, and this is what we're going to be using as a starting point. One thing about this is I've actually already done this video for PHP on port 9000. We're going to actually do the exact same port. We're going to use the same application. I just have to go in and revoke my access. Okay, so I just revoked them all, and so with this, I'm just gonna say download, because I don't actually I tell you to fork it. That's the best thing to do. But I'm gonna do. I would just say download just because I don't want to actually overwrite anything on my Git on this actual Git one. So I'm gonna just do it that way. And what you'll need in this is you'll need to open up a new window, switch to your desktop, and then switch to the MERN boilerplate. And you should start by just running an npm install. This will take a few minutes to actually install, so just let it install. We'll have to do some things to set up our MERN boilerplate. A couple things in being, in this video I'm actually not going to save anything. I mean, if I was actually doing this, I would have a user, like my own session for each one of my own users, and then they would sign in with GitHub, and then I would save the access token from GitHub to potentially a session or to the user specifically. But I'm not going to do that, and then the idea is you'd save your session token to them, so that if you ever want to revoke their access from your website, you just remove their session token. That's just one way. But I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hard code it, so I'm going to get an app. So the way the authentication will work, let me just show you this as that installs. On this first link here, I've put down in the description, it's going to go through the web flow. We're going to redirect the user to this page. That's that page where it says, like, are you okay with that this application uses your GitHub profile? And we'll pass a few things, like the client ID is the only thing actually seriously we have to pass. And then after that, it will redirect us back to our site. And on our site, we're going to make a post request to this URL, and the user won't know this, passing back the code that they gave us, our secret, and our client ID again. And then they'll return this access token. And this access token I'm just going to print out in my case, but this is the access token I'm referring to. You would save this in some sort of way in a database, or you probably just save it in a database for security reasons, and then you give the user some sort of your own session token from your own database to reference. And using this access token, you'll be able to start referencing like the actual APIs, and that's all you need. So it's a pretty simple process, but it's a little it's a matter of these random tokens and these redirects that can get confusing. So has this still it's installed perfectly. We're just going to do an npm run start dev, lowercase d, and we'll put this whole thing on port. Okay, I realized we didn't actually do something. In this, we have to go into config, and then there's this config.example. Rename this to be config.js, and set this up to be localhost. Change the port to be 2701. And you'll need to have Mongo installed. We're not actually going to use any of this database stuff, but you'll need to have Mongo installed to actually run this code. And I'm just going to do a command shift F, or it's going to search the entire project in Atom. I'm just going to look for the 8080, and I'm going to change this to be port 9000. This is the port that I use with my map, and to just do with one application, I'm just going to copy the same port. And I'm going to clear this and do the npm run start dev again. Hopefully my screen's not too small. I'm trying to make it bigger. And the server is running on, now it's going to compile the webpack. Again, this isn't a React video in any sense, except for the code being used. So localhost 9000, let's just try this out. Alright, so it's there. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna add one more link in here. On the React side, I know it's not a React thing. If you go to client app components, and then if you go to home.js, there's a whole bunch of things here. Just below all this, I mean, you could delete all this too. I mean, it's not super important, but I just don't want to bother messing with it. I'm gonna add an href. And I'm going to say the following. Sign in with GitHub. And this will, there it is there. And I need the specific URL for my application. So scroll, sorry, here it is. This OAuth authorization URL. And you should have to go client ID, and you're going to give it a client ID. You're going to give it your client ID. Mine's sitting right here. Okay, so I have no users authenticated. It was me that was authenticated before. And so you just plug that in there. And don't give your secret away. That should be private information. Other step you could do is you pass in an unreadable string with the state and then verify that it's coming. And then essentially you save it and then you verify that when you go to sign up the access, you still have that unreadable string. If they don't line up, something's wrong. Just another security step you can go with. But that's all I'm going to do. Set a query parameter with the client ID. And so when I click this, it will redirect somewhere else. And when it comes back, it won't be this website, right? It will be the following. Well, sorry, you saw me create it. It's this URL here. So user/signin/ so user/signin/callback, and for that, sure, load the hello world page. I'm just going to use it as the you know what, actually I take that back. I don't want this to all be on the front end, right? So I'm going to actually have to set it up on the back end to run a GET request. And so instead of this, I'm going to open up server routes API. We'll create a new file called Github.js or something like that. Copy this one line. And I'm just going to copy over the GET request from this file here. Just to save some typing. Close it off. And I just said that this is the URL I need. User/signin/callback, and that will be a GET request. And I'm 95% sure that in the request query will contain the code. Actually, I know it's going to be there, so we don't have to worry about it. But so the incoming will be the following: this URL and the question mark, and then code, and then a random string. So what we'll need is the code, and we'll just say if code is null, return res.send success. Or invalid, or you can write whatever you want. But if it is successful, we want to run that post request with, this won't work. There, fixing that. We want to run that post request, and then depending on how the post request results, we'll run the, grab the access token. We'll actually just display it in this example, but so for now we're just going to display the code. Let me show you how this is kind of all going to work. Refresh this page. Since I changed the backend, the server has stopped running, so I'm just hit up and then enter, which is the npm start dev. Okay, so it's compiled successfully. We're going to refresh the page here. I'm just going to hit sign in with GitHub. Redirects me to my authorization page. I'm going to authorize, and it's going to redirect me back to my GET request. Oh, shit, okay. Sorry, I never actually gave a response on the GET request, right? So it'll go forever, but I got a code here, so I know that the code aspect works. So the next thing is we're going to have to do step 2, this OAuth process. And step 2 involves creating a post request, and with these 3 parameters, client ID, client secret, and the new code we just got, and that will return our access token. The only other attribute is we'll need to set the header to be application JSON, the accepted type, so that we get an application JSON back. JSON back. And with that, we're going to need some sort of library to make outgoing HTTP requests to another server, which my personal favorite is the super agent library here. Should probably open up the actual GitHub page. It's by Vision Media. And scrolling down, I'm going to do an npm install. Sorry. I want to do an npm install super agent -- save. So the next person who wants to use my code will also install it. And then I want to make a post request. I mean, there's a post request there, and we can just copy this one. It's right on the top, and so we'll need to import our library, which will be constant request require, and then super agent, and we'll say request.post, and then we'll need the URL, which can be found on the GitHub page here. So github.com/login/OAuth/access token, and what we'll pass are a few parameters, which is a client ID. Here I'm just going to actually add some line breaks here. So like I was saying, it's a client ID, it's a client secret, and the last one is code. Code is code, and then I guess we'll hard code these. I don't recommend actually doing that. Sorry, I'm jumping around again. I'm just looking for my OAuth information. So client ID and client secret. I don't need to set this line here. We want to accept an application JSON response, and that's what we'll get back here. So let's do the following. And we'll just return the result of that response, and it would probably be showing our access token, which you don't want to do with the user. You probably want to save it to a database, but I'm just going to hard code everything. So this is where I'm going to end it here. And so with that, we're going to retry this entire sign-in process again. So I'm back on port 9000. I hit sign in. Okay, yes. So I'm being jumped here because I've already my server isn't running. That's my issue. But sorry, and the other thing is I'm being redirected right to my sign-in page because I've already authorized it, and so GitHub's actually that quick that you don't even notice it. So it's successful, so I'm going to hit sign in, and it redirects me to GitHub, verifies that I'm there. Res.send is not a function. And we have a bug. Res.send. Isn't it? Oh, I'm duplicating the names of res.send, so this would be actually result, and this is the wrong thing. This should be result body, and this should be res, which would be, okay, so I was just duplicating names. Also means we have to restart the server. And so I switch back over to my dashboard here. Let me refresh this, but I know my server's running if it can load the refresh. So hit sign in with GitHub, redirects me to GitHub, verifies that I'm already said yes, it's okay, and then redirects me back, makes that post request and responded, and gives me this access token. I'm just going to copy that. And the reason why I'm just going to copy that is because I'm just going to do it right here. app.get slash, let's just do user, and then there's a couple things, request, res, and next. And so we're just going to use this access token, and the idea is you typically actually grab it from the back end based on who the user is, but I'm not going to do that. Access token. And so if you look at so we're going to use, I'm just going to prove that the API is all set up. So if I want to get a single user, I can just go to API/, github.com/ and then I just put my username in. And that's all public information, so that doesn't really matter. But if you want a private user, like whoever has the access token, you want to follow this one, get user. And if you follow the get user, it has two things. It has your authorization token here, and sub in your authorization token. So I'll just show you. So we're going to make another request. So it's request get, I think it is. Let me just verify on the super agent library. Just want to say get request. Perfect. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Get. I just lost it. It's /user. So it's get https api.github.com /user. It doesn't actually want me to pass in anything as the query parameters. It wants it to be header instead. So I'm just going to see how to set a header on the super agent library. Setting header fields here. Okay, so it's .set. .set. And the one thing it wants me to do is sub this in. I know I'm kind of jumping a couple instructions here, but so we're setting the header token to be passed in. And the last thing is we need to GitHub. If we try that request, I'll show you the result. I just want to say res.send the result.body. And so that's the restart a server. Here, so /user. And I'll tell you now this won't work, or it will. Okay, yeah, so it did work. And so there it is. So that's us sending an API. So now we've authenticated. We sent an API request. So changing the scope during the authentication process. Here, if you scroll up, you can pass scope in. Here's a list of scopes, and it will determine how far you want to go and what access you want throughout the API. The access token doesn't need to change, just the scope. I mean, you have to set up the API calls, but I'm saying if you can't access something, change the scope. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe. I'm going to have another video next Wednesday.